And I'm also going to stream this onto our Facebook Live so that people can watch there as well. And that just takes a quick second to set up. Continue. Let me actually pause the recording on this. Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to the last Family Engagement Networking Night for 2021. Not the last ever, just the last for this year. As we're heading into the holiday season, we wanted to end with a bang, really. We're really excited about Triad coming to speak with us tonight and share the resources that they have available for students and families. And I'm going to let Becky and John introduce themselves in a second, but I'll just give you a little intro as to what we're doing. And for those of you joining us on Facebook, welcome and hi. And for anyone else joining us, if you didn't make it to the Zoom link in time, that's okay. This presentation will end up on our website, familyengagementtn.com, as a resource for families permanently and forever. So you'll be able to watch it all there. But thank you all for joining us tonight. And we have Becky and John. So Becky Haynes and John Stabbitz joining us. They are consultants from Vanderbilt Kennedy Center's Triad. And they're going to share information around current initiatives and services across age groups. They'll share about services and resources specific to caregivers, as well as focus in on our school age supports and how those can be accessed to meet the needs of students, educators, and caregivers. Attendees will leave with immediate access to several Triad resources, which are amazing, along with information that can be shared with school teams for accessing Triad services. So Becky and John, I'm going to turn this over to you, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having us. As we get our slides up in presentation mode, I will go ahead and kick off the introduction. So hopefully I don't lose my voice. I can tell it's starting to go. But as Jen mentioned, my name is Becky Haynes. I am one of the consultants that works with Triad. I oversee our early childhood programming currently, and I do a lot of work within our behavioral services as well. My background is I was an early childhood teacher for quite a few years. Taught in a blended pre-K classroom. I worked as a clinical director in a private autism school, and then I worked in Metro Public Schools for a number of years as a behavior analyst, working with the Pearl Cone cluster. And then I came over to Triad and have been here for quite some time now. So John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, so a little bit of background. I was a classroom special ed teacher for several years, working primarily in self-contained classrooms for students who presented with severe challenging behavior. So students with not just autism, but emotional disturbance and other disability areas. And I did that in Nashville. I did that in Southern California. I spent some time as a district behavior analyst in Southern California, and then have been at Triad, like Becky, for several years now, and have been really excited to be working with Becky and other colleagues to grow the programs we're going to be talking about tonight. Quick question, Becky, is it showing us presentation mode on your end right now? Perfect.
It is, we are good.
Cool.
All right, so as Jen mentioned, there are a couple of things that we want to hopefully accomplish with you all today. The first is we want to introduce you guys, if you're not already familiar with it. The Department of Education within our state has set up a new technical assistance network for schools and families to access support through. And so we want to quickly orient you guys to the new Tennessee Technical Assistance Network, or TENTAN as it is affectionately called now. So that's going to be one order of business. Another order of business is going to be to give you all some information around our current scope of services. So exactly what we're not going to go into the nitty gritties of our contracts that we have with different providers, but we want to at least orient you guys to the work that we do, who it reaches. There's a lot of different facets of the work within Triad. And so our goal is to give you a broad overview and then to go a little bit more specifically into the services that our educators throughout the state can access, along with families of students with disabilities. families. And then lastly, we want to make sure to give you all immediate access to a number of the Triad resources that are available. They are free. We will not spam your inboxes with information. We just want to make sure that you have access to helpful, hopefully helpful information and tools and resources. So that's our goal for today. And then we also want to make sure that we allow time for you all to ask us any questions. I'm going to take some notes on the questions that you asked. So that way, if John and I don't have the answers, we will take it to other people within our organization who might have the answers, and we will get those directly back to you. So those are our goals for today. Hopefully that sounds okay to everybody. So just a broad overview of Triad. Like I said, Triad is kind of multifaceted. We have a couple of different hubs within the overall organization. And our first hub is that of our outreach services. And so our outreach services, we really are trying to connect with the broader community within Nashville, within the state of Tennessee, and even at the national level. And so really, this is kind of broken down into a couple of different categories. We have outreach services that are directly geared towards families, particularly families of young children who have just been diagnosed with autism. This is called our Families First programming. Typically, this line of programming involves free workshops, which is great. Back in the pre-COVID days, we were doing workshops in person where families could come to Vanderbilt's campus. There was childcare. There was all sorts of wonderful perks associated with this in the world of COVID. As everything else switched to online versions, we also pivoted our Families First workshops to being online as well. But those are still free workshops. They happen on a monthly basis. And again, they are geared towards younger families with younger children on the spectrum. In addition to those free workshops, the Families First folks have also been working hard to put out these quick tip videos, which are anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes long, around tips and tricks and tools that could be really beneficial for use in the home, use in the community. So I encourage you all, we'll make sure you know how to access those things, but they have some really great quick tip videos. There are some archived webinars that you can go back and watch from some of our older workshops. So if there was a topic that happened that you're like, oh man, I can't believe I missed that, I wish I had known about it sooner, not to worry, we've recorded them. They are up and they're available and they're free. And then in addition, we have quite a few different online resources that the team has worked hard to make sure that families have access to. We also have our community engagement group that functions under our outreach services. And this is a group that they have grown by leaps and bounds over the year. And what started as partnering with just a couple of different places in Nashville, like the Nashville Zoo or the Nashville Ballet, the reach has grown tremendously. And their goal is really to work with community organizations to promote full inclusion. And we know full inclusion is a spectrum, right? And so they are working with many different agencies, many different organizations to provide them support to work towards making their programming as inclusive as possible, so that as a family, you have the security and the comfort in knowing that you can get out into the community and you can go and enjoy things as a family, and you are going to be supported by our local organizations and agencies. So there is more information on our website. I included a hyperlink for the All Access Inclusion Network, but they are constantly expanding and adding new partners to that list. So if you're ever curious, gosh, which agencies, which places in Nashville and in the state work with Triad and are working towards building up their inclusive options and opportunities, that's a great resource to check out. In addition, we have online services, and we'll touch on these online services quite a bit throughout the rest of the presentation. But our online services includes a whole plethora of brief online modules. The goal of these, again, is just to provide Introductory information. Some of these go a little bit more in depth. We're always working to expand our library of online modules, but we have tons of online modules that give information, give overviews around different evidence-based strategies that can be used in the home, in the school setting, in the community setting. So I strongly encourage you to check out our online library. We will give you access to that. Again, it's free, as everything that we do is free. So you have instant access to a huge library of videos that is constantly growing. And then in addition, our other online services includes, we're constantly coming up with new printable resources that, again, hopefully help support you in the home setting, in the school setting, and out in the community settings. And lastly, within our outreach services, we have our Autism Resource line. This is going to be something we reference back to quite a few times throughout the presentation, but I've included the numbers to call if you are looking to get connected with resources to support your child. And then there's also the email. This is going to be your first stop basically in accessing Triad supports, but also our Autism Resource line. They are so connected with all the organizations and agencies that can support your children and educators. And so we strongly encourage it. They're very well versed in the work that we do all throughout Triad. So calling the Autism Resource line is going to be the best option for accessing Triad services right away. And then they work really closely with Tennessee Disability Pathfinder as well. So it's a nice little link there. So those are our outreach services. We also have what we call our direct client services. So these are more of our research services, our research lines, and our clinical services. Triad, there's a group of us that focus really, I am not one of the ones that does this, but there is a group of my colleagues that focuses predominantly around diagnosing children with autism spectrum disorder. And so they do testing for autism for children up to age 18. And this is this is one of the primary ways that a lot of people know about Triad. And so if you are looking for somewhere for testing, I can't tell you what the current wait list looks like. I don't know how long that wait list is. That's something John and I can easily ask our colleagues about, but diagnostics is definitely one of the big areas that our group focuses in on. We also do quite a bit of research. We have a lot of colleagues who lead up major research studies around diagnostics, around evaluation services. We have around lots of different topics, but if you're ever interested in all the different research opportunities, again, if you contact that Autism Resource line, they will be able to connect you to the different research opportunities that may be of interest. And then we also have clinical services. We have a number of different clinical services, but some of the big ones are, we have a sleep clinic. So if you have a child who is struggling with their sleep, then the sleep clinic might be a good option. We have one of our coworkers, Whitney, leads that up. And so we can easily, again, contacting the Autism Resource line, they can connect you to the sleep clinic. We have colleagues who work with the primary care facilities within Vanderbilt's network and helping physicians to better understand kind of the developmental progression and understanding autism and how all of that integrates together. And then lastly, we have our Tadpole Clinic, which is focused on early intervention clinical services for students with autism. Again, we have some colleagues who this is all that they do. They are wonderful. And if that is something that you want to learn more about, we are happy to get you connected through the Autism Resource line. And then our next area of focus is and this is one area we're going to talk a lot more about. So I'm going to just quickly gloss over it, but we do a lot with educator training. And so this is where we partner with the Tennessee Department of Education, and where the Tennessee Technical Assistance Network comes into play. And so our goal within providing educator training and support is to help build capacity within our educational system to support students with disabilities. And so we offer workshops, we offer online learning options, and we offer coaching and consultation options. I am not going to go into detail because John and I are going to talk more about that just momentarily, but just know that educator training is a big part of what we do. All right, John, take it away.
All right. So one of the things that we want to talk to you about is this Tennessee Technical Assistance Network, which Becky referenced earlier. This is, I think it's relatively new. There was a group of technical assistance grants that were put out there about a year ago. And so these are some of the areas of focus on the right that you can see that were meant to be addressed through the Tennessee Technical Assistance Network. This is all of these address needs across the state of Tennessee. And what you can see down the left on the left side are some of the ways in which those areas of focus were intended to be addressed. So we'll talk about in a second is Triad is heavily engaged with several of these, but we also have some partners beyond Triad who are part of this technical assistance network. And I just want to highlight it is the Tennessee Department of Education that is really has provided the funding for this and has got all of this up and running. Another way to conceptualize that Tennessee Technical Assistance Network is looking at through this graphic. You can see 4 of the kind of primary contact areas. The behavior contract is one that I have focused on. Becky has focused on the preschool contract. Our colleague Whitney, who we keep referencing, is focused on the autism contract. And then we have partners at Vanderbilt University, University of Tennessee at Knoxville, and University of Memphis, who have worked together on the RTI part of it. And within all of these, within the Tennessee Technical Assistance Network, there are partners who help in coordinating all 4 of these things, making sure they complement each other, and that when families or educators are trying to find the right fit for their school or for their child, that they can integrate these and have them work well together. And then the evaluation piece of it is that there are some of the other partners within the Tennessee Technical Assistance Network who ensure that everything is delivering what the state has asked for. If you would like to learn more about the Tennessee Technical Assistance Network, the hyperlink on this slide might be a good starting point. Because the network is new, I think some of these resources will share under construction. So I think it's fair to say that if you keep checking back here, I think as that network becomes more built out and robust, you'll see more. Upper right-hand corner here, you can see just who some of our partners are within the Tennessee Technical Assistance Network. As you can see, it's a big team, and it's one we're really honored to be a part of. We're both going to speak a little bit over the next couple slides here about specifically the contracts that Triad is working on. And so one of the ones that I want to be able to speak to is some of the focuses that Triad is bringing to our contracts. Our contracts are looking at not only how do we help the children of Tennessee, but also how can it be that we can work with the educators who work with these children. So it isn't the point of this grant that Triad would swoop in with the thousands and thousands of students across the state who require individualized support or might be the benefactors of the Tennessee Technical Assistance Network. It's our hope that we can impact outcomes for children and their school experiences, and in some cases their experiences outside of school, by providing support for educators. And so I think here you can see a couple of examples down the right column of some of the sorts of supports we like to provide. We're going to detail some of those a little bit more in the upcoming slides. I think also just the left here, working across different levels of whether we're talking about whole child or whole educator, we're making an effort to make sure that through the RTI model or the response intervention model that in concert with our other partners, that to the extent that there are supports that need to be school-wide, that those are in place, that to the extent that supports are for targeted groups of students, that those are high in quality and beneficial. And then in particular, a lot of the work, at least with the behavior contract, is sometimes focused on work that is highly individualized on a student level. But I think I would also say that one of the major themes of the Tennessee Technical Assistance Network is also individualization for a school or for even a school system to figure out what are their strengths, what are the areas of growth that they've identified, or in some cases they're leaning on their partners at the 1010 network or their contacts, the Department of Ed, to figure out where they will focus. And then as a result of the Tennessee Technical Assistance Network having several different mechanisms and several different areas of expertise, we can meet teams where they are and provide them with an individualized either coaching or consultation or professional development or even some of these more on-demand sorts of approaches. As far as pacing for coaches and educators, as we individualize these models as well, a lot of the conversations we have include what topics do you want to learn about, but also what do you have time for? What is a good matchup for the capacity of the educators we're working with? And so I think that as we talk about some of these resources, if you or the people you know are interested in pursuing these, it might be worth mentioning to, especially if someone says, well, this is a very busy year for me, or I already have a lot of irons in the fire. It's worth them reaching out to the Technical Assistance Network, because it could be that what we're able to provide is dialed in or more dialed back, depending on the needs of the team, or to the extent that Triad is routing educators to different capacity building programs. We really do strive to try to match people up with programs that are the right, not only the right topic, but also the right level of intensity and pacing. Something else to look at, and again, this is kind of a callback to some of those programs that Becky was mentioning just a couple minutes ago, but we really would like to make sure that we are integrating things that may not occur within school, things such as early assessment and family navigation through clinical models she mentioned, the early intervention work through the Tennessee Early Intervention Systems work that Triad does in concert with the Department of Education, that we are working to provide training and mentorship across the state, not only to educators, but also, as Becky mentioned, to medical providers and community members, that through our clinical work, through all these things, and as well as family engagement, that we really are looking at the whole child and the whole family, as I was just saying a moment ago, and trying to set everybody who's engaging with Triad or with the Tennessee Technical Assistance Network with the right combination of resources and services for their needs. With that, I'm going to pass the mic to Becky.
All right, so with our work with the Tennessee Technical Assistance Network, we are responsible for delivering services for the autism portion of the contract as well as the behavior portion. So as far as our autism contract goes, John, if you don't mind advancing the slide one, that would be great. The way in which we plan to go about delivering services is there's going to be quite a few different options for educators to access information from us. And then within that, we plan to expand kind of our effort with families as well. But at this point, the goal is that we are going to hopefully eventually provide some in-person training opportunities for educators going forward, if the world will cooperate with us. And then we also are going to continue to have some synchronous and some asynchronous virtual learning opportunities, such as webinars for the synchronous opportunities or professional learning communities. We are going to continue to build out our library of online modules for educators and families to access. In addition, we have also been piloting having some self-guided training series and training programs for folks to work their way through. We're also working with a number of districts and a number of places on providing them with the resources to facilitate some training some of their own trainings. And so we give them the training materials, we teach them how to facilitate those trainings, and then they go forth and they conquer. So lots of different learning modalities that we plan to utilize during this contract cycle, and more may be added as we go on in time, but at this point, this is kind of the scope of what we're looking at. In addition, the areas that we, oh, sorry, John, if you don't mind going back to that one again, thanks. In addition, we plan on kind of hitting on a lot of different categories or a lot of different topics within this autism contract. So we want to reach administrators. We want to support them in supporting their educators and supporting the families that they work with. Around students with autism. We want to target paraprofessionals, make sure that they have the training and support in order to best support the students that they work with. We are targeting working with early childhood teachers, along with collaborating with the preschool grantees. There's a team called ONLAR who they have been given the preschool grant within the Tennessee Technical Assistance Network, and their focus is on increasing inclusion within our preschool programming throughout the state of Tennessee. And so within our autism programming, we can help to enhance that work. And so we are working with early childhood educators as part of this programming as well. We want to focus on classroom management. We're going to focus on academics, increasing student engagement with academics, as well as helping to enhance academic instruction. There's going to be a focus on communication skills, on social skills, on mental health, as well as the transition on thinking about transition aged populations. So lots of different areas that are included within our autism programming. And that is just going to continue to grow over the next 5 years with this contract. You can skip forward, that'd be great. So if there are educators that you know who are looking for support, then this is going to be the best way to connect them to Triad at this point. So what they can do is I've included the hyperlink over to the right, but they can go to our website, to Triad's website, and then there is a section on the website for educators. If they click on that, then it brings them to this page. It's going to tell them it's going to give this little task analysis of how to access our services. And the step number 1 is they fill out a little form. It takes less than 5 minutes to complete. And then someone from Triad is going to contact them really soon after they submit that form. And then we will match them with whatever training opportunity seems to be the best fit for them at that time. So like John mentioned, we have educators who they're like, we want everything, we need everything right now. And then we have others who there's just so much going on. They want support, but we have to be mindful and meet people where they're at. And so we try to make sure that we have programming options that can meet our educators wherever they're at. So clicking that link and share that link with the educators you know, and we will do the rest. We will do the hard work and we will help them in whatever way we can. They can also gather more information if they click on the browse our programs little purple button down below. That will take them to a list of all the different training options that are available to them as well. In addition, within our autism contract, we're tasked with supporting families as well as educators, which is really exciting. And so in our previous contract, it was a lot more focused on educators. And so now moving forward, we're going to be focused on educators and families, which is great. And so we're going to continue to build out our resources that are specific to families and caregivers. But just a couple of the things that are readily available and part of a library that's going to continue to grow and grow. But we have online modules that are made specifically for families and caregivers. We also have some printable resources, and we have these longer resources called toolkits that combine a lot of different resources into one nice PDF. And so those are going to be some of the most useful things at this point in time. In addition, I mentioned the Families First workshop. So, over time, our workshops and webinars, maybe something that is an area that grows depending on kind of the need that we see. But the online modules and the printable resources and toolkits are going to be something that we specifically focus in on building. And you can access those through our website. And the link is provided on the next slide. So the hyperlink to access the family portion of our website is over to the right, but it'll take you to a page that looks like this, and you can see all the different resources that are available for families. So I mentioned the Autism Resource line. There is a hyperlink that takes you directly to that as well. You can see there's a button for community engagement. So I mentioned the Inclusion Network in Nashville, and so you can click on that community engagement button and you can see the list of all of the community partners that we work with to build out inclusive programming options. The online learning takes you directly to our online learning library with all of the different modules and archived webinars. And then the printable resources button takes you to some of those toolkits and other resources that you can just download and print, and it's ready to go. And so there's an ever-growing library of those as well. So hopefully that's going to be a helpful resource for you, but we wanted to make sure to orient you to that. All right. So now John's going to talk about the behavior side of our programming.
Terrific. And I see a question here about, can we share links for the resources that we have, or are those found on the website? I think one of the things we'd like to do is to share a PDF of these slides. And so there's some hyperlinks, as Becky's been showing embedded in these. We'll try to make sure that those are visible in the PDF. But if there's anything that we share that folks are saying, hey, how do I access that? Please feel free to reach out to us via email, and we'll try to provide that. However, also in the spirit of this question, you might have just seen with that screenshot that Becky shared, the website probably is the best place to look for a lot of the things we've talked about tonight. So, all right. With our behavior contract, what I'll share is that we have, Triad has, we've always had interest from the folks we've worked with, especially in schools, around addressing behavior. But it's really been the last 6 years when we've been partnering with the Department of Education to try to build capacity, especially when individualized and intensified work is required. And we're really excited that this newest contract has the most resources and is really the most robust version of that we've ever been able to carry out. So we're really excited to describe to you. We're going to talk about some stuff that has already been done, but then several things that are going to be built over the next 5 years as a product of our work with the Tennessee Technical Assistance Network. Quickly, I want to kind of orient people to what we're talking about in terms of the mission and goals of this contract. This is meant to be a capacity building contract, not only, it says for educators, but also for families and for community members, but really around us hoping that as a community in Tennessee that we can get better at supporting the holistic needs of students when the behavior that they experience interferes with learning for them or learning for other students. And so the student profile that we're looking for is students anywhere from pre-K through 12th grade that have an IEP. That IEP can be for any eligibility. For this contract, it's not at all exclusive to autism. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an IEP for which behavior is the focus. In fact, there can really be any focus with the IEP, but things to look out for would be students where maybe the team has had a hard time getting the IEP to work the way they want to, or they've tried behavior supports and they haven't really felt like the behavior supports in place have led to the kind of response or success that the IEP team was hoping for their student. The kind of student goals we're looking for, number one for us is increasing engagement. We say engagement, that's in all the school experiences that students are supposed to be able to have, whether they're taking part in classes, whether they're attending therapy sessions with a speech pathologist or an occupational therapist, having being able to engage in the social opportunities. We really want to make sure that students are able to be present and to take advantage of what is out there in schools. Safety is a big one. A high percentage of the students we work with, there are concerns around the students hurting themselves, hurting other people, or fleeing from the classroom or school. And so those are issues when they are on our radar that we typically have to put a lot of focus on, and just in order to set the stage for the child to be engaged. Student independence is another really big one. We find that a lot of the students we work with are reliant on one or two or more adults to really shadow them and provide just an incredible amount of support. We'd really like to help our educators and help the families we work with to set our students up to be more independent as they engage with that school environment and prepare for a more independent life. And then finally, but certainly not the least of these, is inclusion. We feel like a lot of the students that we try to serve through this contract may be less included than they would be were it not for their behavior. So, for instance, a student who flees, a student who hurts themselves, or a student who, grabs materials and throws them during class. We find that some of those students just are kept out of inclusive spaces as a result of that. And so we'd really like to help the students learn new ways of getting their needs met, foster in educators new ways to set the stage for students to be successful so they can be maximally included. We're talking about student goals and educator goals. It's not that one of these is more important than the other, but I think the main mechanism of our contract is to try to work with educators such that we can meet those student goals, if that isn't clear already from what I'm saying. So some of the key skills we're trying to develop and the educators we work with, we say root cause analysis, in that we know educators are short on time and resources. We want them to take an analytic approach in which, rather than them doing a lot of trial and error and a lot of kind of scattershot trying all the interventions, that they can really focus interventions and adjustments where needs are for the student or for the team. Database decision making, we feel like whether you're a parent of the child who's part of the situation, or the teacher or someone else on the team, we just really want to make sure that we're using data to figure out what are our priorities, where should we engage first, what would success look like, how will we know if we're on the right track or not. And then it's critically important to this contract that we teach teams how to intensify and individualize behavior interventions, that when other full school or full class tactics for getting students engaged and getting them safe and getting them independent are not working, that schools can figure out what's not working for this student, how can we change our actions to get a better outcome. And so we really want the capacity of the educators and the parents and other community members who support these teams to learn skills like leadership and cooperating and listening and asking, and also being efficient with resources that are there, trying to focus on sustainability. This is maybe going to sound familiar because we're using some similar mechanisms here to the things that Becky was talking about in the autism contract. But under this contract, there are going to be at least 10 different families of virtual training modules. Some of the themes are helping educators or helping families to understand what does it mean for schools to be compliant with state and federal regulations around providing service, responding in the right way when behavior happens, making sure that children's rights are being adhered to, and delivering evidence-based practice. So making sure that people have access to new sorts of practices that are the best ways for them to invest their time in assessment and intervention. As Becky mentioned, materials and resources, so that there's some similar sorts of things to what she was just sharing, tip sheets and downloadables and resource guides for families. One of the parts of this contract is for us to work with the ARC and with other partners to try to make sure that we're building some resources families could refer to that are friendly to them and speak to the kind of needs they have, to understand, going a little bit deeper than just those giant rights packets you get at the beginning of an IEP meeting. Also, some of these things have evolved. For instance, there's a new law in effect in Tennessee called the Special Education Behavior Supports Act that went in effect July 1 of this year. And making sure that all of us in the state understand what is promised to students now, what's promised to families, is going to be a learning process for everyone. So even if people were really up on things as of June 30th, there's more to learn now. And just making sure also that schools have resources that they can share amongst themselves to make sure they're being compliant and using the right kind of practices. Finally, a big part of the work we do is in our coaching and consultation framework. So one of those being that we have a really robust and individualized, highly individualized model for working with teams where they've identified a student who has the kind of goals we just talked about, the profile we just talked about, and the educators have the kind of goals we just talked about. And so we meet the team where they are. And the training that we provide through coaching and consultation is intended to help the team meet those sorts of student and educator goals for a particular student. Another model that we have worked to develop over the last 6 years is our intensive partnership for behavior intervention, which, in addition to providing very student-focused coaching consultation, for this, there's a heavy dose of professional development that builds a really nice foundation for decision-making, understanding more about what evidence-based practices out there, touching on some of the philosophical underpinnings that we feel are right for special educators and the communities that serve these students. So these are some of those things we're going to be delivering over the course of the 5 years. Some are in effect right now. Some of these are going to be showing up as we go. My mouse is fighting back. Okay. One thing I do want to highlight is both Becky and I are board certified behavior analysts, and the behavior contract really does take an ABA approach to addressing behavior. I think at a time when many on this Zoom and certainly many in the community are aware that ABA needs to evolve. There has been some evolution, but there's some aspects of ABA that really needs to evolve. And so wrapped up within this contract, as we look at these sorts of steps that you see on the screen, is we've been trying to work with teams to really think about what are the right goals from an ethical standpoint, from a personal standpoint. Let's ensure that behavior analysts aren't doing things just because we can, that schools aren't doing things just because we can, but that there's a real connection to what are the preferences of the student, what are the preferences or needs that the family has expressed, and let's ensure that we are truly individualizing the work that we do. And so there's Triad has worked to develop just some really, I think, innovative mechanisms for our consultants checking themselves and checking each other to make sure that we're approaching these cases thoughtfully, and then us imparting those sorts of questions and those sorts of frameworks to the trainees we work with. So we're really hopeful that although ABA may be a familiar term or familiar concept for many people in Tennessee, that it can be a progressive and truly modern brand of ABA that is what we're going to find in our schools under this particular technical assistance network. I'm about to close out this section. Before I do, I'm seeing a question from Tara who said, where is the new law from June 30th? Here's what I think I can share about that. If you're able to look up, I'm just not sure if it's publicly available in an absolute sense or not, but the term for it is the Special Education Behavior Supports Act. So I wonder if some Googling could help us turn up the actual text of that. But I will say that's a great question that Becky and I can relay to the Tennessee Department of Education. Their staff is quite well versed on some of the new parts of this. And so we can ask them where the best resources are to share that folks like you could take a peek at. I'm going to pass the mic to Becky.
Yeah, I just did a quick Google search and was able to pull up, I don't know if it's the finalized wording because it looks like there might be some edits in there, but yes, you should be able to Google it. But like John said, we can get some more information for you all. I did write that question down on the Q&A list, so fear not. All right, so before we open it up to Q&As, we wanted to just provide you all with a couple of resources to give you immediate access to some of the other resources that we oriented you to. So the very first one, John, if you want to skip to the next slide, is our our online learning platform. And so this is where you would go to access all the different online modules that we have available. So we have modules on using schedules. We have modules on task analyses. We have modules on different facets of behavior. We have modules on transitions, on reinforcement, on all sorts of things. We also have a lot of archived webinars. So webinars that we've done in the past that if you want to look through the titles and see if there's anything of interest, you're able to access those as well. So in order to access those modules, you'll need to register an account if you don't already have one. And so these are the instructions to do so. You don't need to worry about taking a screenshot. Like I said, or Johnson will make sure you guys have a PDF of the slides, but I'm also going to drop in the chat box a link to, or the actual document so that you can have the instructions saved to your computer. So you're able to do that right away. One thing I will tell you is it's going to send you an email verifying that you have registered an account. So sometimes it does end up going to people's spam boxes. So if you can't find your email verification shortly after you have registered an account, I'd say within 3 to 5 minutes, if you don't see an email pop up verifying your account, check your spam box, because there's a really good chance that it has ended up in there. So just know that. So I will make sure to drop these instructions in the chat box for you momentarily. The other thing that we're going to put in the chat box for you, so you have immediate access to it, is our homeschool toolkit. So John, if you can advance to the next slide. This is what the cover page of this looks like, but this toolkit is about supporting homeschool communication and partnership. And so there is a printable toolkit that you can print off and look through. There is also an online course. So if you go and you make an account to register for our online portal, then you can also access the course, the homeschool partnership course on our learning platform as well. So 2 different ways to access this information, but I'm going to drop the PDF of this toolkit in the chat box for you. And then the last slide, last resource is, again, just connecting you to that autism resource line. Like we said, this is going to be kind of your stop number 1 in terms of getting matched up to the different resources that Triad has available for families. And so if there are research studies that you want to learn more about, if there's clinical services that you want to learn more about, if there are diagnostic services that you need to learn more about, this is the place to go. And Nina, who's pictured here, will connect you to whatever part of Triad is going to be the best fit for you. And so she's wonderful. She will help you out. And so you can call, you can email, but those are both up here for you as well. So with that being said, we want to make sure to open the floor for questions. John, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'm seeing some good questions from Tara about what does it have to say about inclusion? What does it have to say about students in CDC rooms? I've got to say, I have not read the SEBSA law, so I can't speak to that. Becky, if you're aware, feel free to answer that one. Otherwise, that might be one that we could take to the Department of Ed and try to see if they have a quick answer on that one.
Yeah, I think that's probably our best bet. Yeah, I would say let's do that, just to make sure we provide the clearest and most accurate information possible.
If someone were to say what is different, I think that the aspects that I was made aware of during some trainings this summer with the DOE are that there are some changes in how restraint and isolation are being defined, the way that those need to be documented, guidance to teams around when those are appropriate, under what circumstances, and how those may be reflected in BIPs. So I suspect there's more to the changes in the Special Education Behavior Supports Act than that, but those are the parts that I was made aware of.
And I did just drop both of those documents into the chat box, so you should hopefully see those now. And then I will make sure to email Jen a copy of the slides if anybody would like them. And then I'm going to put the link to our website in the chat box again as well. So with that being said, are there any other questions that anyone has for John or I? Like we said, we will do our best to answer them, but if we don't have an answer, we will take them back to our many colleagues and see who has an answer, and we'll get it back to you too.
I put a comment on the Facebook page as well to see if anyone there had questions, and I haven't seen it come through quite yet, but
okay.
If anyone has any in the chat, let us know. You can either unmute or ask your question, typing it in the chat. Otherwise, it looks like you guys covered everything and you did an excellent job. We really appreciate all of this information. This is very exciting for families, especially to get to see what is all going on in schools and behind the scenes and what resources are available for everyone. So thank you again so much for joining us tonight. And as I mentioned before, this information will all be put up on our website. And when Becky sends me the PDFs, I can include that on the blog post that goes up with this video and the transcription. So be sure to check back for that if you want to refer back to any of the links that were shared or phone numbers, what have you. And if you have any questions in the future, you can always leave them on our Facebook page or send us an email and we can connect you with Triad as well. So thank you all so much for joining us. And it was great information, and we will be seeing you all in 2022 for our next Family Engagement Networking Night, which is always the last Tuesday of the month at 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Central Time, either on Zoom or on our Facebook page. So thank you all. And if there are any topics you would like us to do in the future or have people come speak in the future about resources that they have, please let us know. We're always open to ideas. So I'm going to stop recording